Welcome, and I would like to call this April 6th meeting of the Somerville School Committee to order with a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent Skipper, will you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Dr. Phillips? Ms. Krepshin? Here. President McLaughlin? Mayor Curtatone? Mr. Green? Ms. Barish? Here. Ms. Patone? Ms. Patone?
Laura Patone here.
Dr. Ackman?
Emily Ackman here. I'd also like to note, I think Dr. Phillips is here.
Dr. Phillips?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Now we
Mr.
can.
Green? Mr. Green is indicating he was muted.
Mr. Green should have the ability to unmute
You are
himself.
now unmute, Mr. Green.
Andre Green is here.
Great. Ms. Norman?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. There's some sort of delay in me hearing the superintendent. I'm not sure if we can work that out. I know that President of the City Council, Matt McLaughlin, and Mayor Joe Curtatone will be joining us. At least the mayor will be. They are currently at the City Council Health Subcommittee meeting. They're having it every Monday at 6 while we're in this health crisis. So it is not that they don't want to be here, but they are more multitasking. I also want to announce that there was a Finance and Facility meeting that was originally scheduled for this Wednesday, which has now been moved to Wednesday, April 15th at 6 o'clock. So we won't have a conflict with the first night of Passover. And I just really want to take a moment to thank our entire Somerville Public School staff. What has happened in the last 3 weeks, it's mind-boggling and heartwarming to see the amount of what was mobilized. So much innovation, so much practical details, from getting diapers out to finding hotspots for kids, to developing curriculum, to teachers readily, happily enrolling in professional development in huge numbers. The first week, the superintendent's directive to educators was contact each kid with humanity and check in. And so we are both doing big systematic things and one-on-one contacts with families and kids as best we can. So I can't say enough about the Somerville Public School staff. I would also like to thank our community and city partners. Those relationships that we have built over time have really stood us in good, has served us well in this crisis. All of our first responders for continuing to keep us safe, and especially to all of our healthcare workers in every capacity during this very, very difficult and stressful time. So I wanted to start off with that. And then our next item of business is public comment, and barring objection from any school committee member, I'm going to suspend the rules and not have public comment tonight during our first online public meeting, and then resume it at our next April 27th meeting at 7 o'clock. Do I hear any objection? Okay, and I will say to the public, you can always contact school committee members by email, by phone, not in person these days, and we will resume public comment at our next meeting. So the next order of business is the superintendent's report. And Superintendent Skipper, can you say some about who's here and how we're going to structure it in, there's two main components, is that correct?
That's correct. I actually prepared a little statement, and As you know, when things are super important, I'll actually write them out. So I'm going to actually read it, and that will help to frame for the audience what they will see tonight. Just good evening, everyone. On March 11th, which seems like months ago, Mayor Curtatone and I made the decision, looking at the COVID-19 statewide and data in Somerville, to put the Somerville Public Schools into an emergency closure. At that time, we all were entering an unknown period, one where there were more questions than answers available, and one of not knowing. And that feeling of not fully knowing is so different than how the world of education normally functions. And so much of what we do is about knowing the answer or seeking the process to find it. This entire process has required a spirit of embracing all we don't know, of working together, trusting each other, struggling together as leaders, educators, students, and families to make the best decision possible. And still knowing that even after all making that decision, it may need to change quickly and we may need to further adapt. This entire process has meant embracing different roles for each of us. Teachers have become guides and coaches, parents, educators and managers, students, agents of their own learning, and leaders, now learners and conductors. I could not be more proud of our Somerville Public Schools family and how it has responded. This whole experience has reinforced my belief in the goodness of the collective we, that when people are vulnerable and show their human frailty, the collective we responds positively and selflessly. Whether it is the stream of volunteers and staff passing out food and diapers, school supplies and Chromebooks each morning, or the food service team making thousands and thousands of breakfasts and lunches weekly, or a Somerville nonprofit continuing to help pack backpacks for the weekend so that families can eat, or educators and principals calling students and families, making videos and singing songs, explaining how to do a math problem in a Google Classroom, or members of our SSD department knocking on doors to find a student we haven't been able to connect with. These are the reminders that it takes a village to make all this work, that people matter above all else, and that together we will get through this to a new normal. There's not enough respect, appreciation, or thank yous to go around in the Somerville Public Schools and in the city of Somerville to acknowledge all of the daily heroes we have. But to the students and families who are watching, please know that your Somerville Public Schools family are thinking about each day, hoping you are all safe, doing our best to connect and to help you to learn. And we can't wait till we can all be back together again in our schools. So tonight we've structured our updates so that you can hear from some of the members of my team who are leading this work. They're proud of their work, and they should be. They do it with their minds and their hearts and all their souls. So tonight, our format is going to actually be hearing from our operations team first. There's a series of people who have led the charge in a variety of areas, and we have an order that we're going to go by. We may interrupt that order both to accommodate the mayor when he's able to join us, but also Doug Kress, the Director of Health and Human Services in Somerville, to give us a public health update. So with that, I am going to actually ask Jeff Curley, who signed on as Chief of Staff and has gotten far more than he's bargained for in this year, who has really helped to manage a lot of the field operations and has been a conduit with the city daily to start. And he's going to do a little bit of description from the field. So Jeff?
Okay, and I just want to share with school committee members, we're going to do the what do you call it, operational presentations. Please have your questions ready. I think a lot of them will be answered as we go through all the different presenters. And then, so if you know, in the chat, put the queue. I will keep a list of who's in the order of questions, but I would like to have the bulk of our operational speakers, you know what I'm trying to say, do the presentations, and then we'll switch over to the academic side. And I believe the mayor is able to join us.
Yes.
Okay. Jeff Curley? Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to adjust my headset here. Can you hear me?
Okay, sure. Yes, we can hear you. Would you like to jump in before Jeff starts the operations presentation, or would you like to settle in a bit?
I'll wait.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, Dr. Curley?
We need to unmute Dr. Curley.
There he is. Try it now, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I appreciate it. It has been a very busy few weeks for everybody on the team, as Superintendent Skipper alluded to. But I've been really proud to be a part of the team and actually a resident of Somerville, where we have, guys, oh, sorry. I've got some kids interrupting the school committee presentation, but where the district and the city, I think, have worked hand in hand. The mayor and his team, Doug Kress of Health and Human Services, have all stepped up to the plate, and we've made this a real team effort. There's a memo in the packet that's going to highlight some of the details of what we've been doing to basically ensure we're meeting the needs of all students, starting from the basics of food and medicine, but going into technology and social emotional support, and all the way down the line. We've worked very closely as a group to make sure that we get as much out of the schools safely as possible and into the hands of educators and students. We've been meeting on a weekly basis with the mayor's team, making sure we're coordinating with the city on healthcare delivery, on food delivery, making sure that we deliver services not just to our students, but to our families and our broader community. And the schools, in a lot of ways, have become hubs for a lot of the distribution that others are going to talk to tonight. So I'm really proud of what the group has put together. There's quite a lot that's happened in the last few weeks, and I think it speaks to, again, the communal effort that we've really put in place here. So I'll let some of the other folks talk to the specifics because they've really been leading on their different areas.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And thanks for just tirelessly in the field, helping to organize the ops side and being that lead with the city. I'd like to welcome Liz Doncaster, who's the director of our student support department in Somerville Public Schools. She's been on the ground and helping in a variety of ways, both with mental health support, but also helping to organize with the distribution centers. So Liz? Okay, it looks like maybe Liz just got bumped off. So we'll come back to Liz. Lauren Mancini, I can't say enough for our food service department. I think as you've heard every day, they are distributing upwards of over 1,000 breakfast and lunches to families. And that also means that they have to prepare them all in advance. Lauren's been, and her staff have been so faithful about it. Lauren, would you be able to speak a little bit to the food side?
Lauren P. or Lauren M?
Lauren M.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Okay, great. Yes, so I'm Lauren Mancini. I'm the food service director. I think it's been hasn't even been a month. We've been at this for we're going into week 4. We've learned a lot. We started, I think school closed on a Wednesday, and by that Monday, we were ready to go with breakfast and lunch. We started at 3 sites. We assessed the situation, and then we eventually expanded to 4 sites. Like Mary said, we're doing about 5,000 meals a week, which is really exciting because the kids need the food. We have a team. My staff has been awesome, so great coming into Winter Hill, trying to be positive and work through everything that we're going through, preparing the meals for the kids, and it's been great. And I really need to thank everyone, Jeff, everyone who's really helped us and made this possible.
Well, thanks, Lauren. I mean, your folks have to do so much in terms of the kitchens just to get in, to socially distanced, to be safe in order to make and pack the food, and then certainly the distribution. So what's been amazing is that you ahead of the curve sort of worked with us to make sure we had enough food in stock so that when we did close, we right away could give those breakfast and lunches out. So thank you so much for your support. I know many families in Somerville are grateful. Our next would be John Breslin. And John and his team are the ones behind the scenes really trying to work to get the Chromebooks out, identify what platforms are appropriate for educators to use with students, troubleshoot, etc. So John has been tireless in this. I mean, it's meant getting the Chromebooks out of the buildings and into the hands of our families. John?
Hey, good evening, John Breslin, Director of Technology. So yeah, to date, we have distributed over 1,000 Chromebooks to families in need of a device. And we've had, it's been a huge team effort, lots of players involved at the different school sites to make this happen. We're also working, trying to partner with Comcast and folks at City Hall to get word out about internet access programs that are available at a very reduced cost. Some offering a promo for a few months at no cost, and whatever we can do for people in need to get them access, we're working to do. My team behind the scenes has been doing a lot in getting admins and teachers onto these platforms, as well as developing documentation and all sorts of things behind the scenes to make this transition as easy as possible for everyone.
Great. And John, to date, how many Chromebooks have we distributed?
Just over 1,000. I believe it was 1,080.
Could you just describe to the audience the process by which we identified who needed a Chromebook?
Yeah, absolutely. So we targeted grades 3 through 12 because those are the grades that actually have familiarity with the Chromebook in their school. They're the ones who have gone through trainings in their library media classes in terms of how to log in and utilize the services available on a Chromebook. So those were the most appropriate grade levels for that device. We, because we don't necessarily have a device for every student, we try to target those most in need who don't have a platform or a device at home to access the services. We also, you know, as much as possible, see if people can share the devices at home. If there's two children and they don't necessarily need to access at the same time. So we're trying to work those things out as best as possible. And then we're also working on a device for parents in needs in the younger grades, grades 2 and lower, to be able to have a device to help them communicate with the teacher, and as well as something that the student can be engaged in educational activities on.
Great. And I know that the teacher teams spent a lot of time really trying to go down to the individual student level. And John, in terms of going forward, what is there some other exciting things to think about? I know with the pre-K to 2, you took some special interest in researching a device that was appropriate for pre-K to 2. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's a tablet device. It's a Amazon Fire Tablet Kids Edition. So it comes with a durable case. Has a 2-year warranty protection with it. It was an affordable cost unit because we're obviously looking for the best value in all of this, since we're potentially adding these extra devices to the organization. But we feel like a tablet device for those younger grades would be most appropriate. It's not an iPad, but for the price, it was the next best thing.
Great.
I'm sorry.
Great. And we're thinking
what you're talking about.
We're thinking that over the next week or
Mark.
so, we should get a timeline update, correct?
His name is Mark.
We're hoping so. We're hoping no shipments get confiscated and that our resell this week. And then as soon as they can get them over to us, we can work on the distribution plan.
It's wonderful. Well, again, thank you to you and the technicians. They've been incredible of making sure to prioritize staying safe, but also getting the devices out to families as is needed. So thank you so much. And we'll look forward to getting continued updates on the access issue for families as well.
Good.
I'm next going to ask Mariana McDonald, who leads our Human Resource Department, to talk a little bit. And everything still continues to move forward, even though we're in a virtual state right now in preparation for next year. And this is a very busy time for Human Resource. So Mariana, would you like to share a few of the exciting things that your department's working on? Can we root Mariana in?
I don't think it has access right now to speaking.
Okay.
I think she
Actually,
logged in as an
Give me the name again
attendee.
quickly. I will fix that.
Mariana McDonald?
It appears she has not dialed in.
Okay.
She's there.
Then we'll move on to Nomi Davidson. So Nomi is leading our family engagement efforts with SFLC, and also a great deal with our volunteer corps. So Nomi?
Hello? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can hear you, Nomi. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay. Well, it's all about relationships. We could not do this work if it were not for all the pre-existing relationships SFLC staff have had with our community's families from birth through high school and beyond. From the onset of this crisis, SFLC mobilized without hesitation, ramping up our efforts to provide basic needs to families in the district. We've supported families with a variety of resources, including food access, housing, unemployment, health insurance, child care, diapers and formula, internet access, immigration advocacy, financial support, legal services, mental health support, and guidance if someone in the family has the virus. Since the start of this crisis, we've been in touch with more than 1,900 families. We are in weekly or more frequent communication with approximately 733 of these families. In some cases, this can involve 3 to 5 calls each day. With the extraordinary resources available in the city and the district, we've been able to respond to the needs of approximately 80% of these families. We've worked collaboratively, as Lauren talked about, with the Somerville Food Coalition to distribute food and promote the service. And in collaboration with the Beautiful Stuff Project, we've organized the distribution of more than 18,000 diapers to 406 families. In addition to basic needs, the SFLC continues to provide birth to 5 programming. In the past week, over 100 families participated in virtual play groups and parent support groups. And most importantly, we just want to thank all our city and community partners. And if I could, I would thank the entire SFLC staff by name because they're the ones who make it happen. So thank you.
Nomi, your SFLC is responsible for so many things that are the real life pieces for our families. What have you found to be the most challenging just in terms of trying to organize it?
Actually, I had some challenges that I wrote down. I think the top 3 in the past week have been establishing the virtual connections through technology for families, supporting families without income who aren't eligible for unemployment because of their immigration status, and helping families navigate anxiety and uncertainty in the event that family members become ill.
Well, you've definitely done a really remarkable job helping also with the city and the city services, just working so closely with health services as well as the other parts of the city to make sure that our families are getting what they need. So we can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you for all your support.
Absolutely. So I'm going to, I noticed that Doug Kress actually just joined us, and I do want to be respectful of his time. So Chair Norman, would be okay with you if Mr. Kress gave us a quick update?
We would very much welcome Mr. Kress joining us at whatever moment he has for us. Absolutely. Mr. Kress, are you there?
Hello, everybody. I'll put my face so people can see me. Thank you for having me, Madam Chair and committee members. I do appreciate being here and being able to spend a little bit of time with you to answer any questions you may have. As you know, the city continues to work on this particular effort and this initiative. And I would just reiterate a couple of things that I heard Naomi talk about at the very end is the staff have been amazing, really stepping up to the plate to do all kinds of work. A lot of it is outside of their everyday milieu and their everyday work that they have been doing and pitching in to make sure that we continue to do the work that we need to do for our community and to make sure that everybody stays safe and that we can flatten this curve to make sure that people, we can get through this and be on the other end of this epidemic that's now facing all of us. We do anticipate seeing an increase this week and into next week before we are going to see our huge spike, before we even will start to see a turn for that. We have been partnering with the schools for many different things. I know Naomi had talked a little bit about some of the work we've been doing around the food and food securities and making sure that the families do have access to the food. I think our next, what we're now really trying to understand and to get our arms around as well are the ideas of housing issues, and for people who may be impacted by this virus, who don't have a safe place to quarantine or to isolate themselves, and how we're going to start to deal with some of that. We've been trying to get some information from our state partners to really help us do this work. It's limited because we are all very strained and stressed with the access to getting some of this information and getting some of these services. But I will let you know that it's amazing to see how many people are looking to Somerville for answers, because we have done so much work and because we have really moved the dial forward on a lot of different efforts. And that's everything from how we're dealing with our schools and our students, getting them the services that they need, getting them engaged in our community in a variety of ways, to getting them, making sure that they have access to food. But one of the things I want to really kind of emphasize in this that we all need to take a part in is the idea of the social distancing and really adhering to the stay-at-home efforts that we have in place. That advisory has been in for quite a while, and I know people are anxious to get outside. However, I want to remind us that when we do go outside, there's the potential for exposure. And we also know that there are a lot of people out there who may be carrying this virus that will never have any types of symptoms at all, but still may pass that virus on to other individuals. That's one of the reasons that we are supporting the idea of wearing a mask, and really one of the ideas why we're looking at encouraging people to wear masks when they're outside. It's maybe not protecting you from getting the virus into you, but it's how you may be projecting that virus out into the community. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. With that, we have to continue to do the social distancing. If you are going outside, make sure that you continue to do the social distancing in every aspect of your lives. If you're going to be exercising outside, think about it. Do I need to exercise outside, or can I possibly exercise inside without anybody around us? We know that people really want to be out on the community path or into the streets or in parks. Please stay home and do those things at home. Learn different ways of how you can do your exercises. If you have ones, picking them up differently, or picking up your gallons of milk and doing your exercise that way. If you're a runner, remember that stretching is so important. Maybe spend the time on stretching, because oftentimes as runners, we forget about that stretching, and our muscles really could use some of that ability. So do that on the inside so that we can keep our community a little safer by not passing the virus on when you're out and about. And then finally, if you are going out, minimizing those trips out there. We know that people will have to go to the grocery store. We know that people have to go to the pharmacy. When you do that, make sure that you're protecting yourself, washing your hands, frequently. When you get home, immediately wash your hands. Do not, if you're out and about, do not touch your face, so that you can avoid getting the virus possibly into your system, because this virus it's a heavy virus, so it's not going to be airborne, but when somebody sneezes, it'll land on different surfaces. And if you touch those surfaces afterwards, and then touch your face, there's a potential that you could possibly get that virus into you. That's what we want to avoid. And those are the reasons that we really want people to, one, stay inside. Sorry, that was a motorcycle going by if you hear a motorcycle. We also want you to think about that whenever you're doing any of your other everyday activities, to really minimize some of those areas. With the masks, if you are going to wear your masks, making sure that you put it on properly and covering both your nose and your mouth so that you have that. But then when you get home to take it off, wash your hands before you take it off, because you don't know where your hands have been. Then you can take it off, set it off to the side, wash it if it's one that you made at home, whether you're using a t-shirt or a bandana or whatever those products are that you're using, and then wash your hands after you take it off as well, so that you can protect yourself from getting that virus into you. We continue to build our partnerships on a variety of people. We're working with Tufts to help us look at housing people, housing some of our first responders, and we're working with CHA to make sure that people are able to get the information, get the tests that they may need. So this is really a community effort, and it's nice to see those things, but I want to remind everybody, we will get to the other side, but we all have to do our part so that we can all get to the other side as well. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions specific for Mr. Kress in the interest of his time? Oh, Dr. Ackman has a question for you. Dr. Ackman, can you?
All right, let's see how this goes. Oh, hi. Through the chair, if you're willing to, Mr. Kress, give an update on Somerville Hospital and whether or not it's closing or it's reverting to urgent care still at the end of this month, what the update is there, please. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, CHA is still planning to continue on with their processes of converting the emergency department into an urgent care in the same timeline.
Mr. Green, do you have a question for Mr. Kress? And I did see your question earlier too. Mr. Green?
Hi, there we go.
Okay.
So,
and then after this, I want to go to the mayor. Sorry.
Through you, I think this is a city school question, so I wanted to ask before Mr. Kress had to go. And that is simply that I know that our teachers are going to be the first line of contact for a lot of our families here in Somerville, and sometimes the only real official contact between the government and families. So are there ways in which we can support our teachers in being resources to those families about ways and get their basic needs met?
So, Mr. Green, I saw that you had sent a queue earlier. I'm going to ask only for questions specific to Mr. Kress right now.
I'm asking the question because it's a city school question. I didn't know. I wanted to ask it before.
I can actually, I'm sure Doug will chime in. I can actually talk about this. So we talk with Mr. Kress almost daily, if not daily, multiple times. And our process is anytime we have staff or parents or family who have been impacted, and we know that it's beyond the city reaches to support, we're in touch with his office, and that's when we're able to bring to bear the other kind of food resources and healthcare resources. So that's already happened in a number of situations. Doug and his team have been extremely responsive, and we really are trying to sort of draw the line on where we can give the daily distribution of food and the educational support with what might need to be greater social emotional support, healthcare or access to healthcare or other kinds of information. So I think it's a great working partnership. I can't say enough for Doug and his office in the school nurses. They've been extremely responsive with working to our families, and it really is sort of a handoff when it gets to a particular point where somebody or somebody's family has been impacted directly with COVID-19. Doug, I don't know if there's anything else you want to chime in on?
The only thing I really would like to emphasize is that, you know, our school nurses are kind of checking in with some of the students that they have relationships with, which is wonderful to do. And that's above what they're also doing for us, which we have brought them over to our offices. Well, they're not in our offices, they're doing it remotely, but also doing a lot of our contact tracing as well, and connecting with the individuals who are testing positive or their close contacts. So, you know, they're part of this solution as well, and I really appreciate the work that they're doing. And I just want the school staff to know that our school nurses are also stepping up to the plate over here on our side as well, not just keeping in touch with the families. And they're bringing a unique understanding to some of this as well, because they do have that connection with families and with kids a little bit differently than kind of our public health nurses do. So we do appreciate that. And we are working with our partners to really try and address both the food and access to food, which is done through Shape Up Somerville. And now we're looking at some of our housing issues, especially around the overcrowding of housing. And we're working on that problem tonight and tomorrow, and hopefully having some solutions in the next couple of days.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the Mayor Crittotoni to speak. Can we get Mr. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to you, welcome everybody. And I want to just echo the words that have been spoken. I appreciate, it's been very inspiring to see all the collaboration, people understanding what all hands on deck means and everybody working together. That being said, I cannot stress enough how dire the situation is, and that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better on a variety of fronts. Most importantly, on the life and safety and public health front, we will be experiencing a surge. All the predictive modeling states in our area, in our region, sometime between the 10th and the 20th of this month. I've been leading coalitions across the state, and we've been informed by medical experts, epidemiologists, scientists, who provided us a lot of the context that have caused or charged municipalities and school districts to make the difficult but necessary decisions around school closures, stay-at-home advisories, orders, and other restrictions. They're going to be with us for a while. Tomorrow I'll be making more announcements about other activities and gathering that'll be extended, restrictions added and extended through the end of June. I would caution everybody when we think about going to the other side that that's going to be anytime soon. And I would stress what we consider normal when we get to the other side is going to be a new normal in terms of the precautions, the safety mechanisms we have to have in place, sort of the equipment or personal items we may need to wear, how we interact with one another is going to be with us for a while. I believe, as Doug said, we will get there. It's going to be a haul, but I want to be ethical and honest about my assessment where we are, as I have daily conversations not only with our emergency response team, but with leaders across the state, and with, again, experts, scientists, epidemiologists who are advising us. I want to leave some room for you to ask me any questions. I will just say from sitting on the operations side as well, and this will impact our schools. Obviously, reality has been turned upside down. We also, as well as every municipality, local and state government in the country, as much of the private sector, will be facing a crisis, a liquidity crisis, financial crisis. We're hoping that the next bailout is to local and state governments, direct to local governments. Until that happens, we've had to institute, as you probably already heard, certain measures, including a hiring freeze other than for essential positions. We've had to put, and we'll be putting the stops and recalibrating certain capital projects because, again, we're going to have a cash flow crisis up ahead. Luckily, over the last more than 16 years, we built our reserves up from $400,000 to well over the tens of millions. However, that will burn through that quickly. And we need to think of the city and the school's long-term fiscal stability. So we don't have a lot of answers. I don't along that front right now, other than we're working closely with our state delegation and state government, as well as our federal delegation, to make sure that we get the necessary resources around a variety of fronts, not just at the local level, but people who are hurting in their everyday lives and small businesses in our community. But I think we can all understand and agree that our compass is guided by saving lives right now. And we're going to do everything that's necessary, even if it means total disruption of life as the way we know it, even though it already has, even going even further to make sure we don't suffer any further loss of life. We've already suffered one loss of life last week, and his name's probably Mr. Quintanilla. His son Xavier is a graduate of Somerville High School. I spoke to him today. And that hits home, and it hits you hard. So I know there's a lot of unknowns. I know people are scared, they're panicking. Rest assured, you know, we have our sleeves rolled up, and we're at this 24/7. Doug's health team, our emergency response team, our incident action plans are in place, and we're working collaboratively with other communities, not just in the region, but across the Commonwealth and every school district as well. I'm happy to answer any questions in terms of where we are in this, how we see it going, and what decisions we may or may not be making or considering, and on the fiscal side as well, though I don't have a lot of answers for you there right now.
Thank you very much. Ms. Patel?
Thank you. Through Chair Norman, general thanks to everyone. Specifically, I wanted to talk to what Doug Kress spoke to regarding social distancing. What I've been seeing around the city and also hearing from other people is teenagers in particular are having a hard time processing what the expectations are, and parents are really challenged to make this very clear to their children and their young adults and teens that going out and hanging out with your friends and being very close to each other is just, you know, creating risks. And so I just wanted to put the question forward, are there things that we can do messaging specifically focused on young adults and teens and making sure they understand the impact of their behavior? Thank you.
I'd like to speak to
Mr.
this
Mayor?
first, Madam Chair, because we've been trying to reinforce and ask everyone to do the same. Stay at home means stay at home unless you don't have to. People's lives literally depend upon our ability to avoid contact with others. I put out a social media message. We literally, and I know because I was getting invited, my kids invited to hang out with other people's kids, hearing about play dates, all kinds of events. And that seems to have tapered down a bit, but we still see people gathering in the community. That has to stop. And you're right. So what we can do is reinforce that message continuously. This is hard, and this is very disruptive. And we're all crawling up our walls in our home, but it is so necessary to save lives. So in addition to what we're going to be doing on the regulatory side and what we'll be mandating, we're going to continue to reinforce that message, not just as city leaders. We need people in the community, regular day folks, to talk to their friends and talk to other people and say, look, no, we need to do this. This is necessary. There are some, we're a young city. You know, the majority of our population is between the age of 22 and 36, and many of them seem to think they're invulnerable. And it's a reminder, Doug can chime in here, this virus, although people who are over 60 and have chronic underlying illnesses or respiratory issues are very vulnerable, it is having an impact on that age group as well.
Yeah, let me just
Mr. Kress?
a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair, for some of these questions. I do think that part of what we have to be responsible for as parents and as adults is to really model that behavior as well. It's not just the young people that we're seeing out and about in our community, but we're seeing young adults and even people, you know, in their 40s and 50s who are out and about, and there's not a need for that. So we really do have to emphasize the idea of what it means to stay home and push for those things. I know it's really difficult. People are climbing the walls. Put up a climbing wall then in your house if that helps. But think of creative ways that we can really do that. I think, you know, all of us as adults are getting tired of some of the Zoom meetings and meetings go and any of the other meetings that we seem to be having all the time. But young people, you know, they can still stay in touch via their social medias. I know that the last time when I was in City Hall when we were meeting, one of the things that had come up was the idea of making sure that some of our students are retweeting the information or posting the information that we're putting in our social media. Let's make sure that they are on our social media so that they then can repost all of those things to their friends, and getting those messages out there about social distancing, about finding alternative ways to communicate with one another and get out there and do that. I don't think we can emphasize enough the need to really stay home and protect ourselves in that capacity. It's just one of those things that we have to continue to bring forward. The mayor said a little bit about the data that we're seeing right now. The other day I was talking to CHA, and their data and their patient load is mirroring some of the things that we are seeing. We're seeing a high rate of young people between the ages of 20 and 35 who are testing positive, and we're seeing them in the hospital. It's amazing to see that we have 22-year-olds, 24-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 32-year-olds on respirators because they're having a hard time breathing, and it's because of this virus, and we need to continue to do that. Emphasize the message that this is not after one particular population. This is open to everybody, and everybody is at risk of getting this virus.
Thank you. As a parent and a school committee member, I am aware of the frustrations and the importance and the consistent messaging of you have to stay home. There really is no other way. That I would hate for it to have to take knowing someone who is sick or someone who's on a respirator for that message to really hit home, and sometimes that's what it takes. And I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point, but we do need to stay inside. I do agree that the modeling of adult behavior. I mean, Doug, here's a question someone asked me: Is it okay to sit on your own porch in your own backyard? Is being outside close to your own house as the weather gets warmer, is that still considered social distancing?
Yes, you can still be in your own yard on your front porch and doing those things. Not having your neighbors come over, you can certainly talk across your porch as long as you're 6 feet apart from one another. Again, what I said earlier is, you have to think about not just what's in your own defined area, because you can control that. You know what's clean and what's not clean. But as soon as you start stepping off your own stoop, what else might be out there? Where are the viruses that may be out there or lingering behind? So sure, you can be in your own backyard, but that doesn't mean you get to invite your friends over. You stay in your own backyard and keep everybody else in their backyards as well.
If I could just say, I mean, the goal here is to interrupt person-to-person transmission. It seems like common sense, but people seem to not get that. That is our best weapon right now. There's no vaccine, and no vaccine coming for a while. And right now, we're beyond containment. This is not even about mitigation. It's about suppression of transmission. The hospital system, Doug mentioned CHA, I'm in constant contact with those executives as well as the executives from partners as well as others. And the hospital system is already taxed. And our goal, our really underlying goal is not, as we're saving lives, that means not allowing the healthcare system to collapse. And so everyone has their role. Now, there is guidance out there that says, well, no more than 10 people. You shouldn't even be doing that unless there are 10 people living in your house. That's different. But, I see every day like 4 roommates down the street from my house, and they're at a great distance, 4 roommates. They live together right near me, and they're tossing a football. But they're not doing it with 4 different people. Staying within your congregation of your home is what is critical for the time being. That's really important if we're going to interrupt person-to-person transmission.
Thank you. Mr. Kress or Mayor Jode, is there anything else you would like to add? I know you all the demands on your time are phenomenal, and I want to be respectful of that. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I'll just say, thank everyone for everybody watching, for everyone's patient flexibility to understand that everyone knows this is hard. Our lives are turned upside down. Our way of life is certainly disrupted. Our economy is getting crushed. But this is what we need to do. It is so necessary. If we don't take this, right now is the moment really to put the pedal all the way down to the floor, to double down on our efforts. We can't incrementally take on something that is changing at an exponential rate on a daily basis. We have to really double down on what we're doing, and only then when we elevate the measures we're doing, and only then will we come out the other side with the least amount of impact on our health, the least amount of loss of life, and in a better position to then ease back into what we think of as normal.
Yeah, I would echo all of those as well, and thank Superintendent Skipper and all of her staff for the work that they're doing, helping us out to make sure that we're getting the message out there and being a partner in a lot of these things including the food distribution, and also just kind of getting information and working with the families whenever we need some additional supports within there as well. It's an important piece to continue to do this as a partnership. And as the mayor said, together we're going to get through this. And we just want to make sure there's more of us on the other end than not.
Absolutely. Well, on behalf of the school committee and all of Somerville, I really want to thank Mr. Kress and Mayor Curtatone and Mary Skipper. I mean, this has been your leadership, all three of you, and working in concert together and in your various specialties has been a wonder to behold, and it's in a very uncertain time. It has brought me and I think a lot of other people a sense of comfort, not just in terms of the logistics of actually being able to eat, and that the practice, but also knowing that this is, as leaders, you're demonstrating how it is to work together and to always dig a little bit deeper, go to the next step, to do it with kindness as much as possible, and patience, which I think all of us lose that from time to time, maybe at some moment every day. But it really has been an extraordinary effort, and I am deeply proud of being in Somerville right now and the leadership that you have shown, not just within our city, but regionally. So thank you for that. And I don't want to, you're welcome to stay with us, but we also fully understand the amount of demands on your time. So thank you for taking this time to be with us tonight. It's deeply appreciated.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be on the call.
Great.
Okay, super.
So, Chair Norman, I'm going to finish the off side. There's two more people that I'd like to call in. I think we can get Liz Doncaster in at this time. So let me unmute. Liz, are you there?
Yeah, I made it. Thank you. Liz Doncaster, Director of Student Services. Things are a little glitchy because of where I live, but I'm in. I thank you, Superintendent, and Carrie and the Mayor and Doug Kress. And I really want to piggyback on what Doug Kress said. First of all, I was given the task of running the distribution centers for the food with my staff, who did not even blink an eye and said, absolutely. We had so many volunteers that wanted to help, wanted to be at the distribution centers, and were showing up very much eager to help. And as we realized how serious this was getting, as much as I thank you all so much for caring and wanting to do something, we have really realized that the food distribution centers really only need 2 people, the food lead and maybe 1 more volunteer, for the safety of everybody involved, wearing gloves and keeping 6-foot distance. So, and really trying to keep the food distribution centers a grab and go and not, a hangout type of thing. So I think we've really kind of streamlined it and pared it down to be a very safe thing for people to come and get the food from our 4 distribution centers. Laura Mancini and her crew have been doing a great job. And Lisa Richardson and her crew at Shape Up Somerville and the Bags on the Backpack program on Fridays. I cannot tell you, when you see people coming to get the food and how grateful they are and how relieved they are that it's there for them every day. This is such an important program that we do this for our families and our students in Somerville. I'm just really proud to be a part of it. And I'm proud of all the principals that have helped with all the schedules and lining all of it up. They really are beginning to lean on it as a food source. So it's very important that we keep that going. I would also like to just talk a little bit about the mental health supports that we're putting in for our students. We've always done very well with embedded counseling, our adjustment counselors and counselors in every building. We continue to do that work beyond the school closings. So the counselors are checking in with their students. If they had embedding counseling through Riverside, through a Home for Little Wanderers, CHA, Teen Connection, they're all checking in with their students. So we really feel that we're consistent. The principals have been on top of the redirects, the deans of students, the counselors. We are in we have a constant connection with the BEST team to see if we are having any assessments in the city, and if an assessment is being done on a student, that they will let us know so we can support that student. we are in contact with DCF and other programs to support students in their mental health. So I want to make sure that we do that. One thing that we do, that we used to do regular meetings in the school, was this student support team meeting, which talked about our high risk, high needs students. Those meetings have continued to happen. They're happening virtually. So there are conversations happening about the well-being of our students every single day. We have not missed a beat. And I think that's a tribute to Mary Skipper's leadership and the passion that I've seen out here on the streets, because I'm out here every single day. I haven't missed a day. And the passion that I see out here, you know, our principals, assistant principals, administrators, teachers, everybody wanting to step up. Everybody always talking about a student. Have you seen them? Have you heard them? And talking about their families. People in this city, we absolutely care, and the passion is there. And I know we're going to get through this. And as we continue with the food distributions, we are always reminding people to wash their hands, keep distant, stay home. And from what I've seen, the people I've seen are really respecting that, and because they respect their community, and we all want to see this pass. But those are just some of the few things that I've been involved in, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this this community and this school system. So, thank you, Mary.
Ms.
No, thank you,
Doncaster, I have to say, talk about stepping up. It is both a team effort, it's a leadership effort, it's a community effort. To see, there are many things that are public. The food distribution, you can drive by the West Somerville and you can see, Matt O'Donnell or whoever's there that day smiling and handing out food, and that's that important connection. But what is not visible, we will also get to the academic part, the learning part, that is public, but all of those individual contacts, when the superintendent says we are tracking down every student to make sure that there's a contact that we know as best we can, support them the best we can, it is beautiful and so important. I mean, there are many aspects of this crisis that have to literally life and death without I don't think that's an overstatement, whether it's having to do with the virus or the continuing complexities of our student and family lives, and the fact that you and our staff and our community partners are going that extra mile when they're also taking care of their own families and dealing with all the logistics we all do just to get food in the house, toilet paper, that's another big item, and yet being so focused on each individual student at the same time. It is truly, on behalf of the school committee, we are deeply grateful for all of the work that is being done to support our students in every capacity.
Thank you very much.
I think I cut you off.
It truly has been a collaborative effort of academics and logistics and all, and the cabinet speaks every day, and we share our stories of the day, and we are very connected, and we all have a purpose, and it's led by Mary Skipper. So it's just been the most heartwarming, sort of incredible experience that I've had these past few weeks. So thank you.
Well, thank you for working so hard.
I referenced you earlier, Liz, is, whether it's a knock on the door of trying to track down a student. So, every student, every family will get to them. So thank you for all your work.
We will. Thank you.
And I'm going to actually ask, I think Mariana was able to get in, Mariana McDonald, who is head of our HR department. She's we're trying to make the best of the situation as well. And one of the creative ways our HR department is coming together, since we have hiring to do for the upcoming season. So she has some news to share with school committee. Mariana?
Hi, hello everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties earlier.
Welcome.
So yes, as Superintendent Skipper said, the work in HR continues, but we've had to adjust to a new normal, just as everyone else has. We have changed all our processes to online processes by converting all our forms online. We did have a career fair scheduled for April 5th that we've had to cancel, but the exciting part about that, there is a rainbow, silver lining. We actually created our very first virtual career fair that went live today. by using the School Spring platform and Zoom, we were able to have candidates touch base with each one of our schools. And on April 15th, from 10 to 12, these candidates are going to be able to have a meet and greet with the principals of each school that they signed up for and other representatives from the school. So this is really exciting. Today, by this afternoon, some schools had 30 applicants already, 20, 22, so, and that was just today. So we're very excited about that, and maybe we'll keep this platform.
That's great. I mean, it's been amazing to watch our departments, which would have normally been a stumbling block, to think around the stumbling block and think about how can we still make this happen. So kudos to HR, to Mariana, to the leadership for trying something really different, and it seems like people are responding to it. And I know that our principals are very much looking forward to meeting all of their future applicants. So thank you for your hard work on everything, Mariana.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chair Norman, I think our last person on the ops side is Regina, if she's on here, to just bring in, Regina is director of our enrollment center, and the enrollment specialists have been doing a lot of tireless work with families because enrollment doesn't stop. So, Regina, are you connected?
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Regina.
Hi.
Hi, Regina.
So we have been able to, can you see me, Drew? So we have been able to process 672 registrations since January in the whole enrollment office. Staff is settled at home, working and contacting families, completing registration. We expanded the deadline for kindergarten and pre-K registration, which was last Friday. So we're coming up with, we tested the lottery system last week and InfoSnap. We have a high number of kindergarten registration this year. We have 428 registrations. Compared to last year, we had around, on this first round, we had 406. So we are a little up in numbers, which is exciting. Pre-K registration, we are at 215. And then we have some registrations for grades 1 to 12. But it's amazing that and also language assessment. We completed 132 language assessments in person, and families who registered after we closed. We've been doing phone screening assessment to have language as base for program recommendation, with the understanding with parents that after when we go back into regular session, we will fully assess the students. So we're running full operation in the enrollment office. It's been amazing. And really the staff has been, no words to describe. Everybody has adjusted well to working from home and contacting families and completing all these registrations and assessment.
Great. So thank you, Regina, and to all of the enrollment staff for everything that they need to families when they're calling in with questions, uncertain of the process, uncertain of the timelines. And we'll continue to update school committee as more enrollments come in. But certainly, I think some of the flexibility that we're trying to give families is understanding what they're going through right now. So Chair Norman, before we open it up for questions, I just want to mention Susanna Morgan. I can't say enough about Susanna. You receive our district communications, and she is the person that helps to organize all of the happenings and thoughts and communicate them in a way that makes sense no matter who the stakeholder is. And she works tirelessly. Some of those updates are happening at night, late at night, early in the morning. Suzanne is always ready and at the make to put it into words that people can understand and make sense. So she's wonderful. So she's not actually on the operations update, but I know our team would definitely want to give her a huge shout out. So there it is. So with that, I think we can open it up for questions.
Well, I just wanted to jump in on complimenting Ms. Susanna Morgan, because those communications, not only are they reassuring, it's another human contact, but they are very content rich with real information, and it is wonderful and consistent and clear. I wanted to, huge shout out. I also want to say all of the staff is working more hours now, not in school, and it is not uncommon to get emails at midnight or 6 in the morning, and it's it may not be visible to everyone, but I cannot thank the staff enough, not just for the innovation and the good cheer and the deep commitment to students, but the long hours and making something up that in many ways did not exist at all 3 weeks ago. It is phenomenal. I would like to take, did you want to add anything else, Superintendent Skipper, before we open up for questions?
No, I know the academic team is chomping at the bit. So, whatever questions we have for ops, that's great.
Okay, I don't see any right now. I had just one clarifying question, Regina. When you said there was 672 registrations, are that 672 new students to the district that are spread out between pre-K and 12? Wow. Okay, thank you. Mr. Green, you have a question, and can you turn on your camera when you speak, please?
Hi. So my first question is just a very technical question for Mr. Breslin. So through you, Chair Norman, to Mr. Breslin. So I have a Kindle Fire for my daughter, and my understanding is they don't play well with Google Tech. And that one of the ways in which, for example, my daughter's kindergarten class is meeting is through Google Meets. So do we have a solution to that, or what is the preferred method going forward for virtual meetings for our pre-K through 2?
I think actually Mr. Breslin is off the call now, but I do think Jeff is on it. What I can say is I know that each of the platforms has its struggles as we've gone through, and there's a tech team that's actually working to create a wiki so that families can get updated information in a very adaptive way. So as we encounter a particular tech issue, John's team then has groups of techs that are researching the issue to figure out what they might do to solve it. Knowing that sort of no device is perfect. As you know, with the pre-K to 2, part of what we wanted was actually kids not to be on devices. We've adopted very much a play orientation within SPS, but given the circumstances, we felt that a device would be better than understanding the need for connections to some of the video components. So I'm sure we can ask John that question, that particular one, but my guess is if it's reported by parents, John's team will be working on it for a resolution.
Thanks.
Do other school committee members have questions on the ops side? If not, we will move on to the academic side of the house. Okay, fantastic. Superintendent?
Yes, so thank you again to the ops team for supporting academics. We salute you. That's how it's supposed to work. So, Mr. Mazza, when you signed up as the assistant superintendent for the Somerville Public Schools, little did you know we would be in this situation. But you have handled it gracefully, you have embraced it, and you are putting together with your strong academic team a good plan. I do want to compliment all of our unions in Somerville. I will say it's been a pleasure to work with them for over the last 4 weeks to carve out memorandums of understanding that allow us to move the work forward, that keeps students, families, and educators at the center and recognizes we're all human in this. For many of our educators, they themselves are going through sickness, their families are going through sickness, they find themselves in a situation of needing to be care for little kids when they didn't before. all at the same time as being present as an educator. So behind each face, there is a story, whether it is student, family, or educator. And I think what we've been able to do in our remote learning plan through Chad's leadership and the leadership of the other academics that are on the line today, that we've been able to carve something out that through May 4th gives us a clear vision, and then we will have to go with new data as it comes. So with that, Chad, if I could ask you to come onto the screen. I'm gonna unmute you.
All right, here we go. Wow, that's what I look like, huh? Amazing. So, yeah, thank you, Superintendent Skipper, through you, Madam Chair, for the kind words. The academic team has been charged with really creating a remote learning plan for the students from Somerville. And this plan had to be put together very quickly because things changed from about a week and a half ago to the point of where we are now with schools being closed until at least May 4th. And I can tell you, I'm very proud of our team, the tireless work, the collaboration, the innovative thinking that people have done, and the plans that you will see, the people that you will hear from shortly are really the true heroes in this group, on this team, because they're the ones that are actually in the trenches doing the work in the daily grind, speaking with teachers, figuring out ways to reach families, and really figuring out ways to get access to all students. So when we started this work, we based it on the DESE guidelines, but it was centered around our goal as a district around equity and cohesion, because we know first and foremost, those pieces have to be in place in order for this to work and to move the work forward. We then created a continued learning map, and it was called that at the beginning because that was the early stages of the process that we undertook. And there were 4 priority groups that were identified. Students who had no access to internet, Chromebooks, any kind of technology, students who did have access, but then we thought creatively around the high school is a little bit different. So we thought about, what does this mean for seniors? And then what does this mean for our career technical education students? So there were 4 priority groups that we centered this work around. And there were goals that were created for each one of these priority groups. But more importantly, the academic plans that were created were based around special education supports and language learner supports first. And then we branched everything out as far as the work and through the guidelines from the state. We also included a piece about staff development, which I'll talk a little bit about after we hear from some other people. So, you know, again, I'm very proud of the high quality experiences that this team, along with principals, with teachers, are creating for our students. You know, this is a new norm. But I truly believe that these experiences that our students will get will change and will transform their educational experience. And there will be a value add to what our students get. One thing I will say is we were not willing to sacrifice high quality experiences for speed of getting something in place. We took our time. We're still not finished. And I do ask that, you know, people be patient, because again, this is about high quality work and high quality experiences for students. And it's not something that you can rush. And this will evolve weekly as we go between now and May 4th and actually into the future. But the superintendent and I were talking the other day, this is a plan, this remote learning plan, that now we can use in other given circumstances if we need to. So again, I'm very proud of the team. I want you to hear from the team because they're the ones that really are the true greats and put these pieces together. So, you know, thank you.
Great. And so I think we're going to actually start. Some of our panelists actually have other calls, believe it or not, in preparation for tomorrow. So we're going to actually call Lisa Q first, who's our Director of Early Education. And as you can imagine, in the mixed delivery system in the city, it's very complex now that, you know, our centers are closed except for the first responders. So Lisa and her team have had to do a lot of support both within the system and in the mixed delivery. Lisa, can you join us?
Thanks so much. Good evening, everybody. Should I let the camera go on?
You can, yes.
Okay, there we go. Thank you so much. As Superintendent Skipper said, there are sort of two parts to the early education world. One is what's happening in our Somerville public school classrooms, and the other is out in the mixed delivery system. So I'll talk for just a minute or two about both of those things. I'm so grateful to our team who, right from the start, began working on building out our somervilleearlyed.com website so that right off the bat there was content for families and for teachers to access while we figured all of this out. And the big question we started to think about was, what do you do at home to engage young children in learning, and how can that be part of family life, knowing that parents are their family's their child's first teacher, and that play is learning. And so we started from there, and knowing that the families were going to need as much help as children would be, because you can't just put a 4-year-old and just expect them to be able to access curriculum by themselves, and understanding the struggles of parents who are trying to work and have children at home. So our remote learning plan really addresses play and how children can learn as part of family life. And then how do we help our teachers to offer things that are engaging for children and families, and that can support independence so that children can do things on their own. So that's a very big part of our learning plan. And then supporting teachers with technology, because they've had to learn a whole new language of how to communicate with families. So we've developed visual schedules for families to use at home, and easy to access materials. We're eternally grateful to Uri Harel and his team for helping us packets that were translated to send home to people who don't have internet access. So we're moving forward with that in a very beautiful way, I think. The other piece that's happening in the mixed delivery system is the lead agency for the Somerville Partnership for Young Children. We've been supporting the centers, and we're in touch with them right from the start in mid-March to find out what they were going to do until the governor's edict came down that they needed to close on the 23rd, and that people could submit applications for exempt emergency child care. Somerville at the moment does not have any exempt emergency child care centers, which are for people on the front lines, essential workers only. They're not to extend existing care, but we know that Partners has applied and should be opening up a site soon. There are a couple in Cambridge, and then in the, I think the Y in Malden or Melrose has a site, but we don't have a lot of those sites for first responders in our midst. We've been supporting centers because our goal is to be able to have a robust system of early education and care and out of school time. I've been working with Jose Mendez on supporting out of school time programming, and our centers and programs are taking largely 3 different tacks to being able to remain financially stable. One is many are instituting what's called a temporary work shutdown, where they can keep employees on and they collect 50% unemployment. That way teachers and directors can stay in contact with families and get some pay for that. And then there are a variety of loans through Small Business Association and through the federal government that we're urging people to apply for very, very soon. They opened up on Friday. And so the other way is the incredible generosity of families in our community who are able to continue to pay for childcare and are covering salaries even though their children are not attending. So all of these things are supporting our families, and then the partnership is continuing to support, and our coaches are continuing to support teachers who are then working with families in the childcare centers. So it's been incredible what we've been able to do in just a short amount of time, and we couldn't have done it without the support of the district and the superintendent and the academic team and SFLC, who has been a huge outreach support to working with children and families.
Great. Well, thank you, Lisa. I mean, it certainly, when you think of the CTVI work, it certainly has required you guys to rethink how to deliver that work. But you and your team are mobilized in a way to really come together and stay with the spirit of the mixed delivery, which is what it's been about all along. So thank you for your leadership too.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just quick remind people when you're speaking, if you can turn on your camera so we can see you?
Oh, see, now we can see you.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Chad?
Superintendent?
Yes, I'm currently saying goodnight to my lovely Sam, who wants me to stop working.
All right, I think we're going to ask Ori. So you heard Lisa mention Ori Harrell, who is our K coordinator for curriculum and instruction. We're very blessed to have him. And as always, he's a great thinker and problem solver and partner. And he has proved to be all of those things in this. So Ori, from the field, you are much the closest to the classrooms in the K-8. So maybe just talk a little bit about what you've been able to do with the teachers and where you feel we are. There we go. Oop, hold on, Ori. Hold on, we're waiting to get your, there you go.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for inviting me, and thank you for all the efforts you're doing. This is something like we've never seen before. I tell people sometimes I feel like a first-year teacher, a first-year principal, and like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And in the last 3 weeks, I think we've all gotten a few graduate degrees in whatever this is called. Our approach has evolved a lot over the weeks as we've figured out what this really means, and also we've been thinking all the way into when students do come back next year, because we're also looking at this from a view that the learning loss is going to be huge, right? We can't sugarcoat this at all. This will be an equivalent of a long vacation, and we know what summers do for kids in terms of learning loss. So we're thinking way down that road, but also thinking now about where we can place our efforts to minimize that learning loss. So that's one of the areas in our head, and the other area in our head is about keeping students engaged. How do we keep students engaged at different levels? We're in an urban district with a lot of different skills and abilities, and a lot of different accesses to technology and experiences, which makes it a wonderful city, but it also makes it gives us a more complicated solution when doing this. We don't have a one-size-fits-all to address this. So our approach really started out with just putting a foundational layer out there, which was about creating a curated place where families can go find some websites, creating a learning resource bank where teachers can contribute to it, and we had about over 100 teachers contributing resources to that bank, their fellow teachers. And we started off by mailing about 500 packets. So there was a core group of coaches, and my wife recruited, and we put together 500 packets with the help of the SPED department, who did a lot, and the ELL department, who gave us really good resources and translation for kids whose families do not speak English. And that set us up for the initial phase of this. And meanwhile, the tech team really took over to really work on distributing the Chromebooks and to give PD to teachers on how to use Class Dojo and how to use Zoom and how to use Hangouts, how to use all these different tools, and how to provide feedback in this kind of environment. And from there, we've been moving to this next phase right now, where we've been bringing together every grade level for grade level meetings. The coaches have been working tirelessly with me to do a special Zoom meet. We're almost done in a few days for every grade level or grade level band. And in that, we give them some tips about what to focus on and what not to focus on. Because there are a lot of things that won't work well in remote learning, and there are a lot of things that students can do and teachers can do to minimize that shock whenever they do come back to school. So one of the things we've been focusing on in this idea across grade levels is students need to read daily. So the ideal, of course, is the book, but there are some different online options. There's listening to audio. There's a lot of resources for that. There's a lot of resources for differentiating texts, but also making sure that anything we put for reading is accessible to a range of learners, where it's audio or has multi-levels, so kids at different abilities can access it. We're also really committed to students writing every day. We think that's a habit, that's a lifelong habit, and we know what happens when, as adults, we don't do that for long periods of time. So we want our students to not lose that habit. Even if it's a few sentences every day, some kids are asking us to write essays. That's great. But we want to make sure kids are writing every day and having their graphic organizers. Maybe they could use speech to text, so that they are having an ability to express themselves and build that kind of fluency. We've also been focusing with teachers around creating a weekly plan. So really working with teachers to create something that's sustainable for themselves, given this situation where they might have family members who are sick, their family members they're caring for. So how do you create a weekly plan that's predictable for teachers to use, that gives you the biggest impact, but also really accessible for families so they can follow it? And we've been working a lot. Principals have been great in the grade level teams. Coaches have been working with them. We've been doing it in the PD, giving them samples, people's samples to think about, so they can craft a plan that's not only addresses the needs of their kids, but is also flexible and sustainable for them. Because we're only in week 3 here. So we tell teachers, you might be overly ambitious here by trying to schedule 18 Zoom or Hangout calls a day. Think about what it's going to be in 3 weeks from now. And the other component of this plan is getting teachers to collaborate. So if you're going it alone here and you're shutting your virtual classroom door, that's going to get old really quickly here, especially as we're all juggling different obligations. So really getting teachers at a school or across school to work on their plans together, break up the subjects, bring in the ELL teacher, the SPED teacher, and there are schools doing some really remarkable things, including how we outreach to students. So it doesn't always have to be the classroom teacher reaching out to every kid. Sometimes it could be the PE teacher has a strong relationship, or a paraprofessional who has a good relationship. So it's sort of this all hands on deck in a way that is sustainable, which is what we're focusing on. Moving forward, we're really looking after this week to really help teachers take it to the next level and think about how do you provide feedback to students, especially as you get higher up in the grades where you have a caseload of 110 kids. How do you differentiate the feedback? Sometimes just a thumbs up is really good feedback. Sometimes a message in Google Docs is, and sometimes a face-to-face interaction. But how do you do that? And also, how do you create virtual or remote learning situations on and offline that are interactive? So interaction doesn't always happen through that online call. It's actually not always the best way to do it. So helping families and teachers and students come up with ways to interact with each other and build those relationships and meaningful connections to learning. And then from there, we're really moving on to thinking about next year. We're really thinking about what does the first unit of next year look like? What happens when kids do come to school? How do we resequence our units next year to fill in some of the gaps we might have from previous years? So we're trying to do a lot here, and thank you for everyone for the support. The coaching team, teachers have been phenomenal, and principals have been great, and teachers have been so creative and innovative here.
Yeah, thank you, Ori. You've done a remarkable job, with your coaches, with the principals, really systemic, building on, skills that have already been learned. I mean, that's one of the big things that we are focused on through guidance from the state is we're not teaching new things. We're reinforcing and enhancing the skills already taught. But, as Ori said, we're looking into the future, which I think is the way we need to approach this. So, thank you so much, for the work that you are doing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ori.
Our next presenter, Sarah Davila, who is the Director of English Learner Education. Sarah?
Yep. Good evening, everybody. So
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. So I have the pleasure really of being the EL director and also the district administrator for Family and Community Partnership. So I also work with the SFLC, and I really see how our the English Learner Remote Learning Plan really connects to children and families. And I just want to make a comment that the SFLC sent out a notice encouraging us at this time to think about physical distancing rather than social distancing. So we are far apart from each other, but all our work is about connection and about sustaining relationships over a difficult period of time. So I think, you know, we can call it physical distancing and still keep the foundation of the relationships that we've built. And speaking of relationships, the English Learner team is just fabulous. And when we were charged with thinking about, well, what does this mean for language learners? Many of them who are brand new to the country have different access points and different levels of speaking English and coming with different educational experiences. The team really insisted that we needed to take this plan from the student perspective. From the student and family perspective. As we build a plan out, we really have to think, how does this feel? How does it make sense? What does it mean for the children and the young people that are changing the way that they're learning? From that perspective, we start with thinking about, well, children need continuity in their lives, they need stability, they need to know that their relationships don't go away. So we had to build out a plan thinking about that. We also had to make sure that we're considering the differences in the learning conditions. The conditions for learning can be different in different households. And we know that many times English learners are facing some of the deeper challenges around food access and technology. So we want to always keep that forefront. And we think about what language learners need, which is to practice language in interaction, as Ori said, with listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So it's across the areas. And language learners need access, meaningful access to the content curriculum. So I'm a language learner, I'm learning English, but I'm also learning math and science and social studies, physical education, the arts. All of that has to be accessible to me during a remote learning phase. So it's a tall order. And as Chad said, you know, we're learning as we go. But we think we're building something strong. We've gotten some guidance from the DESE. We know that with the Massachusetts Department of Education, we know that we still need to provide ESL access to the content areas. We still need to identify the students that need language access. We still need to monitor progress. We still need to build success plans for those students who are not making the progress that we would want them to make. So we are working as a team in 3 areas over these next couple of months as we interact with our students. We want to reach our goal of 100% equal access and participation for every student, so that we can hold the same high standards for learning for every learner, whether you're a newcomer to English or whether you've been here all your life. Another area is support to our teachers. As Ori mentioned, this takes collaboration, and it's a different way of working. So our team is helping to facilitate educator teams. It takes practice. If you haven't done it before, you have to learn how to collaborate, and you have to practice. Co-planning, co-delivery of instruction is new for our teachers. So we have to support them in that, and we're dedicated to do that, to build the capacity of our teachers to live up to this challenge. And third, I think that Ori also mentioned this, but it's a large area for us with language learners, is we're already thinking about re-engagement. So we're doing re-engagement planning. We know this experience is going to be different for different groups of kids. Some kids are going to fly through this period and do fabulous. Other kids are going to struggle. So we know that when we come back, we have to be prepared to do everything we can to make sure that we're not creating larger gaps. We're not creating larger opportunity gaps. We're not creating larger achievement gaps, so that when we come back, we're ready to meet every learner, probably deliver more intensive services for those students who need it. And that's what we're doing. We're working hard. We're excited, actually, to be working together so well. And I think breaking ground and keeping track of the lessons we're learning now to deliver in a different way when we come back to regular school.
Yeah, Sarah, thank you. One thing I want to point out is the plan that Sarah and her team created became like the model plan and framework for every other plan that you will see tonight and hear about tonight, particularly from the view of the student, starting with the view of the student first, and then taking it to the view of the family, and then taking it from the view of the teacher. So there's three different aspects to the plans, which I think are fantastic, because too often we think of the things in the opposite way. We start with the teacher, then we work our way down to the student. This starts with the students first, which is the most important group of kids that we need to learn about, we need to help, and we need to give access to. So Sarah, thank you so much. And her team has been working, tirelessly as well. I can't say that enough about all the teams that you're going to hear from, but thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Good job.
And next we have Christine Trevisoni, who's the Director of Special Education.
Hi.
Everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for having me, and I'm really honored to lead the special education department during this incredible moment of crisis and to be part of Somerville. As you can imagine, the expectations and engagement practices for special education is ever changing, and we take 2 steps forward, then we take 1 step back based upon what we learn from DESE on a weekly basis. But most importantly, I'm humbled by the work of the special educators that I work with and their commitment and passion to the students that we service. We started off, our first priority were the kids, making sure that everyone had their medications, that they have their devices, that they have their communication books, were they able to access and have the support and services they needed, diapers, everything. We went through devices. How could we give students access to devices? We were able to locate 50 iPads that we're currently having upgraded, and once everything's ready, myself and a team of teachers will be delivering those to families of our highest need students, our students who have severe special needs, autism, and our preschool students who it's not safe for parents to bring them to drop off or pick up types to collect the books. So we will be delivering those ourselves to the families so that they have access to services and supports and therapies throughout. And on top of that, just the collaboration, you hear me talk all the time about removing silos. This is not just about special education students. This is about how do we come together to support all students and to meet the diverse needs of all students. And that was work that we had started before this crisis, and this is work that's really blossomed. So I can tell you some things. What we started off, much like everybody, making sure everyone had the basics of what they needed, communicating with families, engaging, starting to develop. We developed extensive resources. We have a website as well under Somerville Public Schools. It's for students with special needs and disabilities. That includes everything. We have executive functioning resources. We have it broken down by disability category, by language-based learning disabilities, reading, whatever you may need, communication devices. We also have professional development for all teachers, for all staff, and meeting the needs of students with special needs. As we move to that, we've also done outreach and activities. We've moved now, as we begin to plan for remote learning, I've been meeting with I meet with the special education leadership team every day. We meet for an hour. We check in to see where we are. What do we know? Have we missed any students? Do we know what's happening with every student? How are we engaging? I've also begun to meet with groups. I've met with every OT and speech person because for us to provide teletherapy, we have certain rules and restrictions and trainings that need to happen for our staff in order to provide the services that we need. I think it's important to note that special education is not going to be provided the same as it's been provided during a typical school year. For me, that's exciting because I love the flexible thinking. How can we provide these services? We want to provide the services for the students, but this is also an opportunity for transference of the skills. The feedback we often hear from parents is we often say the kid is making great progress in school, but then the parent says they don't see that at home. This gives us the opportunity to work with the parents to be able to apply some of those skills at home. We don't want students just on the computer all the time, just looking at us, talking to them. We want to engage them. We have 3 focuses. One is consultation with families. What do you need? How can we support you? The BCBAs are reaching out. What kind of support do you need for different things that you're struggling with at home? Another is direct instruction, whether that be full group, collaboratively with general educators, small group, or individual, depending upon the students and the needs. Trying not to keep adding services on. And the third is activities or enrichment. How do we take the skills that we're teaching and apply it in a variety of ways? And for example, we talked about it like when you're walking upstairs, counting by 2, right? So that's how do we integrate some physical therapy into that, some of the math into that, some of the language components into that for a real setting. So we have our work cut out for us, and we're excited about it, overwhelmed, but ready for it, and willing to take on whatever we need to do. So we're happy to be here.
Thank you, Christine. We appreciate, all the work that you have done and will continue to do, for our students for sure. So thank you.
I would just say also that to both Christine and to Sarah that I think, a good deal of the guidance we're seeking is from the state. And I think, as is evident by some of the calls that we're doing, the state is also working this information out and expectation. And so we're trying as partners with the state to do our best to decipher as information comes down. And sometimes you make a decision and then a couple of days later there's additional information to consider. So I really applaud Christine and Sarah for needing to be as fully adaptable in how they're making decisions and rolling the plan out, because what we have today probably will be different than what we have 3 weeks from now. But that's just the nature of this, of the unknown as we're finding things out. So kudos to both of you guys for your flexibility.
Awesome. Okay, our next presenter is Kenya Avant, who is our data specialist.
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. So good evening again. My name is Kenya Avant. I'm the data coordinator for the district. I have sleeping children, so I'm trying not to yell. But in terms of my role, over the past few weeks, I've really just been focused on student data privacy and student and data security, just making sure that our student data as we transition into a state of remote learning is held with in the utmost, I guess, security as possible. Just making sure that we're following FERPA regulations, HIPAA, et cetera, and all relevant laws thus far. So during this transition, I've really just been putting effort into making sure that student safety and their personal information is held in the highest regard. Going forward in my particular role, I'm really focused on, since we're not in the physical learning space, what does this new sort of data collection phase look like? As we transition into remote learning, I think it's important that we keep in mind that not all students and not all families will experience this transition in the same way. And so it's important to be cognizant of that fact and ready to reach out to families. And I know our staff are doing this really well right now, just making sure that we're reaching out, we're checking in, we know who has access, we've got the Chromebooks out there, and just sort of keeping our, keeping a pulse on what's working well for students, what's, what challenges are families experiencing, where can we be of support, so that once we're back in the physical space, we're not surprised by, oh, this didn't work well at all, and these students were left behind. And just keeping that mind, keeping an eye towards equity, and being mindful that not all experiences will be the same as we move into remote learning. So that's kind of where we are right now.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
We appreciate so much, just helping, I think, educators and our families navigate. That really is what this is. It's new terrain, and we obviously want to make sure that, just as in the physical buildings, we're protecting our students at all costs. Safety is number one. So, the data field is a new one and developing one, and so it's nice to have you at the helm, helping us to forge it and make sure we're avoiding any kind of minefields, making shifts, and giving the best recommendations we can for educators to stay safe and families to stay safe online. So, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next, who is on deck is Dr. Jessica Boston Davis, who is our Administrator for Equity and Excellence.
Okay, good evening. Could you hear me?
We can.
I recognize that I made a surprise guest appearance earlier, so I apologize about that. I surprised myself. I didn't know what I was doing. So it's now my turn. So good evening, everyone. It's good to be here in some kind of sense of normalcy in this kind of uncertain time. And I wanted to start by just saying that in times of this kind of uncertainty and challenge and crisis even, I think the values of an organization really show, and the values and the priorities. And in this time, I am just so proud to work for Somerville Public Schools, because it is very clear what Superintendent Skipper, really the entire cabinet, all of the principals have prioritized, and that is equity. I mean, it came through in the ops presentation, thinking about how we are making sure students have access to food, our community has access to food, diapers, essential needs, but also technology, access to internet, all of that. We've already heard all that, but I just want to say those are the big barriers around equity that I'm hearing from colleagues in other districts with similar roles as mine, that are really challenges that some folks are really getting stuck on. And so I know that work of like removing those barriers is not happening everywhere. And I just share that because that's kind of the first foundational work. And we've really, through Superintendent Skipper's leadership, have really focused on that and removing those barriers to begin. So now I can kind of roll up my sleeves and jump in. And so I just wanted to share that before I began. But before the extended closure, every department and every school had an equity plan. All schools were engaged in equity-focused PD. And when the closure happened, we had some things gearing up for the spring, and the work shifted. So I would say it shifts, but the work continues. So maybe the way we do it is shifting, but it's going to continue. And so in many ways, kind of this remote learning opportunity, if you will, has magnified some of the areas that we do need to focus on around areas of equity and inequities in the district. So what my work has looked like so far, and what I'll continue to do in a more systematic way as we kind of get ourselves and teachers kind of get situated in the new kind of reality for this time, is so far I've been communicating with a lot of educators one-off, and they we've been brainstorming kind of ways to attack some of the challenges that are emerging. So things like connecting with families on a regular basis despite tech and language barriers, things like making sure, and so these again are things that probably will inform our practices going forward because they're not new, but they're just, it's a new way of doing things. Making sure that students are engaged in our work and engaged in relevant work. helping, and this is echoing a lot that Ori said around learning loss and how are we making sure we're doing everything we can to prevent that. And then also thinking about with educators equitable distribution of time and how can they make sure they're spending their time with their students and families that really need them and make sure that they're able to do that, all while again echoing Ori, making this sustainable because a lot of educators are working more. Most of the emails that I received are after 10 o'clock at night. So these are really dedicated educators who really want the best for their students, and again, it's inspiring to work with. So the things that going forward, based on some of these conversations that are going to emerge are, we've started a lot of conversations, task force, if you will, around supporting students, thinking about some of our students who are most maybe at risk for a lot of things given this extended closure, and how we're going to make sure we support them, and then how does the practices of our school really inform how we support our larger school community. We're also, based on a lot of these conversations and conversations that have emerged in cabinet and in principals meetings, a lot of PD is being developed. So even right now, Sarah Davila and I are working with others on developing PD around communicating with families despite some of the barriers that the remote learning presents. That will be provided for educators in the future, as well as other webinars and things that we've kind of selected and provided for educators to help, them kind of think through this new normal, but also through that lens of equity, because the work again is not going to stop. And finally, and this is again building off of what Kenya just ended with, I really do think this is going to be an opportunity to inform the practices as we even transition back, because a lot of the things are not new, just different, and they're really just being magnified here. So as we learn together, I think we'll actually have gone a lot further in our work towards a more equitable district for all students.
Great. Well, thank you for continuing the work on. I know that the principals, just appreciate you as a thought partner, as they're all, trying to figure out what's the best approach, both for the remainder of this year, but more importantly, to be able to pick up next year so we don't miss a beat. And I think as we talked earlier, there's probably no greater scenario to test what equity truly is in the city. And I think by those means, we have some deep commitment to it, and we'll put the work in for it. So thank you for your leadership too.
Thanks.
Great job, Jess. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also, there's definitely more people that in the future meetings, we'll introduce, but we gave Karen Woods the night off because she's 37 weeks pregnant. And I can't tell you, anytime I feel tired or any of the team feels tired, all we have to do is look at Karen and say, she's juggling a toddler and she's 37 weeks pregnant and she's more organized than anybody. So we just huge shout outs. Jason Behrens has been doing a lot of work in the background with the tech teams. Really, it is just a true effort on the academic side. We wanted a special cameo appearance, so we've asked two of our high school principals to join us. So Principal Lagambina and Principal Green are on the call because I know that, particularly for parents of high schoolers, this is a challenging time. High school is, it's very predictable. This is what you do. And all of a sudden, it's very different. And so, for some of them, the stakes are extremely high. They're seniors, they're juniors going into that year, or freshmen just getting acclimated. So we thought it would be good to just have them, say a few words. The plans are still in progress. Again, we're in a plan until May 4th, and then we'll have to evaluate as we go forward in terms of closure. But up to the May 4th piece, both City and Margate have done a great job leading staff. Their staff's tirelessly dedicated to making sure the kids are learning, and at least they can't interrupt the disruption, but they can try to help them make the best of it. So if I could ask them to share their cams out and their microphones. There we go. There's Mr. Lagambina. And where's Miss Green?
The Somerville swag. Nice.
Yes, he is. So what is happening at Somerville High in Full Circle Next Wave?
Margaret, would you like to go first?
Sure, Sid. I'll go first. So
I was just at school committee on March 9th, presenting my school improvement plan and talking about all this awesome work and the momentum that we had with our Bar Foundation grant and all of that. And then 2 days later, we are home.
Boom.
And so it's definitely a disruption. I think I couldn't be prouder of the work that the district is doing around just making sure our kids' basic needs are met first. We all know our kids can't learn if they're not eating and if they're hungry. So that has just been tremendous. And I think that's definitely the focus we have right now at Next Wave in Full Circle is we know we have a population of students who struggle to be engaged with school in general. And then you put an interruption like this in place. And so our focus has just been re-engaging them, connecting with them, texting them, opening up social media outlets like Instagram and Twitter, finding our kids, talking to their friends to, I don't have so-and-so's phone number, get them to text me, and sharing numbers like that has been tremendous. My staff is just, phenomenal in every day, but even in this work, they're just going above and beyond. And for us, it's, it's really about building our community and learning what does it mean to be a remote community. And my teachers are hosting their counseling groups and their LSG groups, as well as offering their classes live and connecting with students. I think the first 3 weeks, and Stevie and I talked about this too, just when the Commissioner of Education says, well, the work doesn't count, the first 3 weeks, you lose some adolescents who think, well, if it's not going to count, I'm not going to do it. Right. We're really excited that this week we can tell kids this work counts, it means something. And for all of you who have attended our graduation, you know how meaningful that experience is, not just for us, but for our students. And that is the #1 question on the teachers' minds right now is how are we going to celebrate our seniors who have worked so hard to get to this point? And I said, I don't have an answer right now. We are working to May 4th, but that our mission is to celebrate. We will celebrate them in whatever capacity that looks like in this new world that we live in, but we will celebrate. And the work that we're doing right now, we are still moving forward with our project-based learning. I think we really had some great foundations in place before this happened. And my teachers are all used to Google Classroom. That was not a new platform. Doing a live lesson is new, and getting kids to log in remotely is new. But we're planning, as we were planning before this interruption, our PD is going to continue with developing the strong driving question to create a good project, and how do we work towards our competencies in this interruption. That's all work that's going to continue moving forward. That's where we're at right now.
That's great.
I'll give you a bit of what we've been doing and then what we plan on doing. First, I know it came up earlier about people not adhering to responsible social distancing. And so first thing I do, I think I'm going to instruct each of the faculty members to make sure they spend a couple of minutes going over that and talk about responsible social distancing and staying at home with their classes, so we can help get that message out to everyone at Somerville High School.
Thank you.
We continue to do a lot of outreach to students. We've done outreach through the English department, the ELL department, and we've conducted surveys to address the technology needs of our students. And to this date, we've given out about 300 Chromebooks to some of the high school students, and that's probably about what I expected, about 25%. So we're getting there. We're trying to keep track of every student and to make sure that every kid has a device. And then I know Jeff has done a tremendous job trying to work on getting internet to students. And I want to thank Vanity Cruz, our SFLC liaison. She's been working extremely hard with families, helping them. So it's been a team effort. Everyone has been pitching in to make sure we get in touch with students, the assistant principals, the secretaries. So that's the first thing that we did. And then, like Margaret said, we provided each student with some enrichment work and resources, previously. But we also allowed students to make up work for the third quarter. Any assessments or assignments they missed, we allowed them to make that up, and that helped us with our engagement. So by providing them with some things that mattered and counted, that helped us with our engagement. Like John Breslin said, a lot of our staff took PD, and most of our staff is already using Google Classroom, but others that were not familiar with it took PD on that. And then we developed our remote learning plan, and the plan, as someone mentioned, in the plan, you'll see it from a teacher's perspective, a student's perspective, and a parent's perspective. And we're going to ask teachers to post things weekly on Mondays for students, what activities and assignments they're going to do, and then they're going to hold office hours to make sure that students and parents can get in touch with them. And the plan's pretty well developed for a remote learning plan that was just kind of, we had to do it on the run, so I'm very proud of the staff and the administration at the high school. The department heads have been working closely with all of the teachers since this started. And so, we have a number of task force that we have in place. One of them is the senior class task force. I feel really bad for the senior class. They've gone through more than anyone ever deserved to go through. And, we want to find ways to support them. A couple of things. We have some thoughts, like I can't wait till next fall so I can open up the building and let them come in there for some type of senior night, whether it's senior graduation or something, when this all ends and we're just back to some type of normalcy. And so I can't wait to do that. But we have a task force working on that. At the end of the second quarter, we identify every senior who's at risk of graduating, and we work with them. Some of them, it could be as simple as one course, and others it could be more complex, and then those seniors are given a graduation plan. We have third quarter ending now. We'll revisit that list. We'll identify every senior that needs something to graduate. We'll define that. We'll clearly define that pathway to graduation, and we'll support every senior in meeting those obligations. And I'm just certainly waiting for the Department of Education to also provide us some guidelines with regards to MCAS. I'm pretty certain that the MCAS isn't going to prevent any student from graduating this year. And we're going to do everything we can to support our seniors and make sure everyone has a pathway to graduation. Those are some of the things that we've been working on at Somerville High School.
That's great. I mean, go ahead, Carrie.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, all of our kids are dear to us. High schoolers are, I think, particularly complex, and the difference between an incoming ninth grader and a graduating senior is very broad. And so our high school teachers and educators have got a particular complex task, and I really want to thank you, because it is harder, and as soon as they heard no credit, the challenge went way up to engage them, and yet educators were able to do that. The people who I also want to thank very much is our students from pre-K to 12, but particularly our seniors. Sibby, you touched on it, and Margaret, I know a full circle move up graduation ceremony is, if the public hasn't ever been to one, you really need to go, because it is deeply inspiring, and hard work is paid off. The same with the high school graduation, and this senior class, it goes so far beyond the buildings and the transportation and losing Mr. DeSimone. I mean, it's really at every turn, and I have to say the students have handled it with grace and maturity beyond their years, and I think that also has to do with the leadership that they see. They're modeling the adults that they're in contact with. So thank you to all the high school teaching staff.
Absolutely. So Chair Norman, it might be good if we open it up for questions.
Yes. So here's what I have. I have Ms. Krepchen. Mr. Green has two, so I'm going to go Ms. Krepchen, Mr. Green, Dr. Ackman, Ms. Batone, and then back to Mr. Green. And then Mr. Green gets a bonus round because he had an opt question that I did not see. So Ms. Krepchen?
Okay, first of all, thank you all. Very comprehensive and great to hear.
My question was, through you, Madam Chair, to the superintendent or whoever else might want to answer it. Have you all thought through what to do if a teacher is out sick, essentially, or chooses to take the Family Medical Leave Act and can't be doing this interaction? And I'm more thinking about the emotional aspect for the students, and if they are getting this sort of weekly, whatever they're getting from their teachers. I know it's taking lots of different forms. If all of a sudden the teacher is out sick, just want to make sure there's a plan in place for someone else to at least be communicating with the students, or what the plan is for that.
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. I mean, fortunately, we haven't had too many staff in the situation yet. It's been mostly family member care. But, you know, this is in part why we've tried to keep the 3-week plan flexible. And we're really encouraging teachers at the grade levels. You heard Ori talk about the grade level teams meeting, really having teachers partner with each other, with the idea that if one teacher can't fulfill duty because of their own sickness or care for family, there's somebody else that can step into that. And so for students, they sort of see it as a team. The principals are also meeting with their teams weekly. And so they are fully aware of the plan. You know, we had a conversation with a couple of principals today about a situation, asking them to go back and reintroduce another adult into the situation so that there could be this emotional support and that students wouldn't feel a further loss in the class. Will it be perfect? No, because we don't know yet how many of our adults will ultimately be impacted. But there is a plan in place, and this is why the collaboration is so important in this model, because there are those unknowns. So it's a good question. The HR department is supporting any faculty who are, adversely affected because of the sickness themselves or their families. So there is a support plan in place, as well as Doug Kress's office.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Green, a question? And then I will come back to you for the second question after the others.
Actually, you don't need to. Ms. Question asked my second question, so.
Check. Okay.
Mr. Gambino touched on this briefly, but obviously our superintendent is on the state accountability commission, and I'm just curious to know your thoughts on the possibility that we might have to do some sort of modified MCAS on top of all of the stuff going on this year, and what does that mean for the district?
My personal thoughts would that would be unfair. I mean, we have students that have been out of school and not totally engaged in what they should be, and my personal thoughts is that would be very unfair. But with that said, we will prep our students as if there is going to be an MCAS. I hope that we can get guidance from the state in a very timely manner. I mean, that's very, very important to us. And I appreciate Superintendent Skipper being very connected to the Department of Education on this. And, right now it's one of the things that's undefined, and we want clarity of that, and we want clarity soon.
I mean, I'll just say from my professional opinion on this, outside of the AAAC, is that we really need to work at the field level to figure out what are the assessments organically that we're giving in the context of the students we have during the time that we have with them in the mode that we have, to get as much information we need for the simple purpose of what are they missing and what do they need to build on into next year. I think any other kind of assessment at most would be artificial, and I don't think that it would fulfill the purpose of what assessment was intended to, which is to actually inform the field. So I think it really has to come organic. I think it's really, as Ori talked about, it's about the teachers working together and to identify, how do we deepen the knowledge base of the students and the standards that we've been teaching. And that very much fits with the cycle of the year. Up through mid-March, before the testing season, it's a lot of presentation of new material. And then coming into March, you're doing a lot of kind of deepening and connecting the learning to help students make sense. At the high school level, obviously there's course out, so there's additional content that needs to be covered. And I think, you know, the high school folks are looking at that to say what are those couple of critical skills that for a student to have credit in a particular subject and go on, they're going to need to know. So it's you know, it's not replacing the school day in any way, shape, or form. You know, by the state guidance, it's about half of the school day. And, you know, for some students taking, depending on their course load, it may be more than that. For others, it'll be about that. And then we'll have students who will really struggle to engage because of their own lives and what's going on. So I think our goal really is to ensure that we don't get this gap that we've worked so hard to close extending, and really try to focus on the assessments that we have control over, which are the formative organic ones that teachers do as part of their everyday work to assess what students understand and what they're able to know and do and what they aren't. And that really would be, I think, the most responsible way to approach the spring in assessment of any sort. But again, my professional opinion, not speaking on behalf in any way, shape, or form of the body that I sit on.
Thank you. I have Dr. Ackman and then Ms. Patone with questions. Dr. Ackman?
Thank you. I am curious, and I don't know if this goes to Mr. Lagambina, Ms. Green, or Ms. Trevisoni, but specifically about special education at the high school. I like communication, access, things like that. If there is a strategic plan, if someone could talk about that for a bit, I would appreciate it.
Great.
I mean, I can talk about how it, at Next Wave Full Circle, because we are a special education program, so the teachers there are certified special ed teachers. So the students in those classes are getting the supports. You know, it's not the regular school day, but the teachers will make themselves accessible to students, you know, during office hours and one-on-one if they need it. And then as far as the, you know, biggest group of supports that our students get is the clinical support and the one-on-one counseling, that the crisis counselors and the clinical coordinator are still setting up those meetings to meet with kids so they get those therapeutic supports throughout the week.
Yeah, in that high school, you know, we have a lot of collaboration. We have team taught classes, and those special education teachers are going to be working with the regular ed teachers to provide services to our students, and the adjustment counselors, like Margaret just said about the clinical nature, will still be supporting their students. Christine, did you want to add anything? Yep. You need to unmute yourself.
Chris, can you unmute?
She might be on a phone link. We can't hear you, Christine.
She was on before.
Is it Christine?
No, she was on before.
Christine, we've lost your audio. You may need to dial back in. Unmute your phone.
Well, I can fill in. I can fill in a little bit to say what we've discussed. So Christine's been meeting with her department heads and her facilitators on a very regular basis. And as part of that, they're going through each of the students at the respective schools. So at the high school, Rachel, who's the department head, is then communicating with the other teachers, both the teachers who are special educators and those who are regular educators that are servicing special education students. I think what we're trying to do with special ed is to identify how to make the connections for learning for the students, and to do it using some of the accommodations that they're used to. In some cases that works easily in translation, in other cases it doesn't. It goes back to why the collaboration of the regular ed and the special education teachers is so critical, so that when lessons are being designed, when classes are being delivered, if both of those voices are part of the equation, then the student, just as in physical class, is going to have that much more ability to be able to access. So that's happening both at an individual level and also at a programmatic level. So if it's the Promise program at West, or the PATH program at Somerville High, or if it's a resource room at Somerville High, you know, the department head and or the facilitator is actively engaged with the teachers that are part of that program. So the special ed is really trying to do so much right now, without a lot of guidance. So, you know, we deal, I would say almost every day or every other day, there is a meeting somewhere in the state about special education and how best to be able to deliver service. I will say our itinerants, our physical therapists, our occupational therapists, our BCBAs, just amazing outreach to families, really trying to work in a consult model to be able to help families understand how they can take the simplest of things and make it a learning experience for their student. That said and done, at day's end, we are going to have to look at our special needs students to identify, you know, what are some other things that we may be able to do for them over and beyond what's been designed.
Thank you.
I don't think Christine was able to get it unmuted.
No.
Work?
Is that Christine there?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, I think.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, now we can.
Oh, okay. You did a good job, Mary. I think.
I'm not you, but.
Ms. Patone, your question?
Everything's continuing.
Oh, wait, Christine, did you want to add something?
Nope, just
I can't hear.
Responding to what Mary said.
Thank you. Ms. Patone?
Thank you, Chair Norman. First, I just want to quickly acknowledge Mr. LaGambina and the willingness to have the instructors reinforce the importance of social distancing. Thank you for acknowledging that. My question came from something that I've talked to a parent about clarification about what does it mean for work to count in terms of whether it's grades or pass fail or credit, or whether or not it's just not been decided yet. If you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Up to this point, the work has been for enrichment, but was not counting for third quarter grades. As we transition to the fourth quarter and a new memorandum of an agreement with the STA, we're going to have work that is for credit. So students will get a pass-fail grade at the end of the quarter, and they'll get pass or fail or credit or no credit, whatever terminology you want to use, for any assignment that they do. So students will get credit. We're taking out the word optional. We're saying you're expected to do this work, and then students will get credit. The form of it will be in the form of pass, fail, or credit, or no credit. We have yet to determine, you know, how we're going to use that ultimately to determine whether the final grade for a course or pass fail for a course. So that's to be determined. We don't have that handle on it yet, but we do have a task force working on that as well. So again, the work is now, we're not using the term optional. We're saying, here are the expectations for what you should be doing. We want you to do this work and it should be done by this week. And that's the expectation. And then students will get a pass fail, but with a lot of feedback from the teachers. So the teachers will provide feedback on the work, but in terms of credit, it would be credit or no credit. If there's no credit for it because of whatever reason, the student will have an opportunity to earn credit, whether it means doing something, additional work, or rewriting an essay or something like that. Students will be provided the opportunity to get credit for that work. So that comes directly from the state guidance, and we haven't figured out yet what we're going to do about pass-fail for a course at the end of the year. But certainly we would be considerate as much as possible with our students, because these are extraordinary circumstances, and we understand that. And, you know, this is difficult for our students, it's difficult for our staff, and, you know, I don't want anyone to be penalized in any way because of the circumstances. So we're working with the students. You know, if teachers are going to be clear and say, hey, this is what I need you to do, right? Can you please do this? And this is how you're going to get a passing grade. So we're going to work with the students closely to make sure that there's an opportunity to get credit. Again, for each senior, to make sure there's a clearly defined pathway for graduation.
I think I think City shared where we're at with it. I think rather than jump to one particular decision, I think it makes sense to look at is there different outcomes depending on the classes that students are taking, and how do we ensure that we don't disadvantage students that don't have quiet space to work, a regular reliable device and access as we work through. So there's a lot of considerations in this, and I applaud that the approach that Somerville High and Full Circle Next Wave are taking, which is to try to put it student-centered first, make clear you are accountable for the work, put value mostly on the feedback of the teacher, since we know that actually is the number one thing that actually helps students to build skill and to learn, develop student agency in this, which is a key piece, particularly for juniors and seniors who are either heading to college or career or a year away from it, and pull that together, but not feel like within a 3-week period we need to come down on one particular scale. So I think more information as the high school meets on that, we look at it, we make sure there's no unintended consequences of it. Those decisions will get made and communicated, but for the time being, the message is the work counts. Students should be taking the feedback teachers are giving. They should be aligning their work to that. They should be attending sessions, reaching out for office hours, doing all of the things that they would do as if they were in the physical building in that way, with the expectation that they'll, when we're at the end of the May 4th, whether it's a continuation of the closure or whether it's an ending of the closure, at that time we'll give some guidance in terms of the end of the quarter grades.
Ms. Patoni, you had a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Norman. Through you to the superintendent. First of all, thank you for the really thoughtful answer, and that I understand that these things are involved, but also curious about the older students in our K-8s and whether or not the same situation applies, and if you can speak to that, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, I think it does. We actually addressed this on the principal call earlier today. I think particularly 7th and 8th grade, maybe a little bit of 6th, but 7th and 8th grade, I think for themselves, there's a lot around how do you self-organize, video game or, doing work, what's the trade-off? I think, parents feeling taxed, trying to get the kids to do it. So I think, part of the outreach is, first step is the teachers, and then the student support teams that we talked about before are the backup for this. So where students aren't engaging or need a little motivation, extra support, there's going to be that extra layer of the outreach so the teachers really can focus on the teaching and the learning piece, and some of those other supports will come in. But I think, it's very similar. It may be slightly different in terms of the high school, in terms of the grade piece, but I think at day's end, we're talking about a meets, not meets credit relative to the 6 to 8. But again, we want to look at it before firmly landing on that. That's the reason we left that sort of open relative to the MOU.
Do any other school committee members have any other questions? I know, Mr. Green, you had an ops question. You didn't have the opportunity to ask earlier. Would you like to ask that now? Mr.
Yeah.
There you are.
Sorry. Yeah, so the ops question through you to superintendent. As we know, this is not just going to be, much as this is an educational thing, this is also, and a public health thing, this is also a massive economic disruption, and it's going to have, the Great Depression level impact on people. Yeah. And so there have been lots of supports at the state and federal level that have been recently announced. A lot of them expect, for purposes of qualification, that your family receives free or reduced lunch. Now, through what I think is really good on my part, a lot of our schools are universal access, so families aren't applying for free and reduced lunch in those schools, and even at schools where they are, there are a lot of people who qualify now that didn't in September. So what ways are we making it available for people to possibly sign up for free and reduced lunch as a way of accessing other public supports?
So this is an excellent question. It's one we're posing.
Mary, we're having a difficulty hearing you. I don't know if you're farther away from the mic than you were before. Can you hear me now? Yes, thank you. Oh, no, I'm echo.
No,
Wow.
Mary, you didn't join on the computer, did you? Mary's joined on two forms of audio.
Is that better?
No, hang up your phone, please.
No.
Mary, go to your control panel on the upper right corner of your screen. Look at audio. And now I want you to uncheck computer audio and switch to phone call, and you have to dial back in.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I think my earpods. Technical glitch. So what I was saying, Andre, was that this is something we do state calls for the finances, and so this has been added as a question. Typically, this time of year we don't add students on, but given the circumstances, one would expect there's going to be a process. I also think we would. The vast majority of our schools are universal, so really we're talking about May 4th till June. And I think worst case scenario, we internally figure out how to be able to do this for families so that all students are able to eat. But I am hoping that the state opens a process recognizing the extenuating circumstances and hopefully soon advises us what that process would be.
Does that answer? Do you have a follow-up question, Mr. Green?
I guess I expect you might not have this clarity yet, so I understand. But like, there are special, basically supplemental food stamps that have been authorized by the federal government, and the state has to figure out their plan for it. So I expect the state hasn't told you what it is yet. But one of the ways you qualify for those, that basically free money, is by having free reduced lunch. So at schools where we have, like, which are our poorest schools, where we have universal access, is there ways we can support those families in those schools?
Absolutely. And I mean, my guess, if Lauren were on the phone, is she would say we would have the student fill out an application, we would submit it, and then hopefully there is a process to approve it. If there isn't, then we would figure out within our own entails how to be able to pay for it. Because one thing is for sure, we do not want students hungry in any way, shape, or form.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. Wow, that was like, you know, a parade of all stars. I know it's been a very long day for all of our educators, and I appreciate every one of you for being with us tonight. I think it's important for school committee members, but also the public, to understand how complex this situation is. And it may not all be visible, but there are so many moving parts. And what I keep getting struck by, that's not a great sentence, the culture of the Somerville Public Schools, where you have distributed leadership and also a spirit of collaboration and people being able to go and take on new tasks and run with it, and also to work as a team, are two sometimes contrary sets of skills, but you can see how well they've been developed intentionally over the years. And thank goodness, because we would not be as well positioned 3 weeks in without that very intentional leadership development by the superintendent. And for that, that is something that's sort of invisible, but really affects our kids day to day and our families day to day. And you can hear how every department, student first, we need to look at the educators and the families. It's a component, it's striking to me both how people have been able to innovate specific to their programmatic needs, and yet the shared values across the district are so clearly articulated. So Superintendent Skipper, we owe you all a great debt of gratitude. I can say personally, it is, we have 2 quick agenda items after this, and it's a late hour, but it is very comforting to see all of our dear friends and colleagues and to hear of all the work that is being done, because it can feel like the world is your house. And some of our, we're all stumbling all over each other and needing to find grace and patience. But it is helpful to have these connections to the outside world. So deeply grateful, and I especially appreciate the local leadership. I think we've heard this several times tonight. In the absence of state leadership, some of it is being developed, some of it is less clear. I am very appreciative of the local leadership, both in the central office, our principals, our educators, but this really goes down, our secretaries. It really is, every adult in this system has been reaching out and working with kids and families. It's enormously proud. That's all I can say. Did you have any closing remarks, Superintendent Skipper?
No, just, I mean, I think you know why I showed you the team. They're pretty amazing. And, I think we're just blessed because they, as I said before, they lead with their minds and their hearts and their energy. So couldn't ask for more. It's been a humbling and very proud experience as superintendent to get to work with such dedicated educators. So we're very lucky. And thank you to the school committee for its support. You guys have reached out. What can we help with? Your wonderful voices to the constituents. We always appreciate that. And I think it's just been a great team effort with the city. So, it's going to be a difficult next few weeks on many levels, and we'll just continue to try to be there with each other and for each other.
Yes, and this will, we don't even know how much, what oh my goodness, I'm tired. What else is this is going to trickle up? I mean, we're going to get through this initial crisis and what it looks like over the summer, what it looks like next year, what are the gaps farther down the road, what is, Mr. Green alluded, the budget, I mean, there's a lot of different variables. So if we can do this much in 3 weeks, who knows, in 6 months, it'll be sort of amazing. So thank you. With that, I'm going to move on to item number 4, new business. And if I could get a motion on the donations, I would appreciate that. And when you speak as a school committee member, if you could identify yourself, and if someone can unmute themselves and make a motion, that would be great. And turning your camera would be even better.
All right, I'm gonna try. Oh, Sarah, you want it? I can't hear you.
We can't.
Okay.
Dr. Ackman.
All right, I don't know where the school committee, oh, there we go. I move to accept with gratitude the following donations. $1,900 from Matthew Hokie for the Somerville High School lunch debt, and then $100 from Christina Linklater in Somerville for Somerville Public School lunch debt.
Seconded by Laura Patone.
There is a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion or any questions about these donations? Should we do a roll call vote? Are we all on audio? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? We accept those donations. Motions carries, and we accept those donations with gratitude. Mr. Green, did you have one more follow-up question?
Yeah, I just wanted to, while we were all thanking each other and commemorating the amazing work that's been done, I also wanted to thank STA and our teachers union for being excellent partners in this work. I've had the opportunity to speak to colleagues in other school committees in other districts, and the level of student-centered flexibility we've gotten from STA is noteworthy, and I want to make sure we made a point of flagging that.
Thank you. I would also add to that the last memorandum of agreement. I this is no joke. I was on page 7 of it, and the draft, and I wound up calling the superintendent and saying, this is the first bright light in what was a very difficult week on many fronts for me last week, because it showed the agreement with the STA was value-based and student-based, and it had flexibility and accountability. It was an agreement unlike one I have seen in a long time, and it was truly good for the district, but also the kind of partnership that you couldn't be anything but proud. So I really want to thank the STA for working hard. All of our unions, we negotiated with all of them. I would say because of the educators and then the number of members and the complexity of it, it was a particularly complex and innovative agreement. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Green. And with that, we are on item number 5. Are condolences, Dr. Ackman?
Yes. The Somerville School Committee would like to extend its deepest condolences to the families of John Webster Taylor, husband of Judith Taylor, retired SPS paraprofessional, father of Carolyn Taylor, teacher at the Kennedy School, and brother-in-law of Celia Taylor, retired SPS teacher, and brother of the late Tom Taylor, school committee member and city alderman. Arthur Casavant, father of Ann Casavant, special education department chair at East Somerville Community School, and Myrna Ristigini, mother of Diane DeVito, retired teacher.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for a long meeting and thoughtful questions. Be well.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.